The first time I saw my wife's secret credit card, my debit card was being declined over frozen chicken and laundry detergent. 20 minutes later, Rachel stood in our kitchen smiling at me while hiding $38,000 in debt inside her purse. The cashier at Fry's Food and Drug tried my card twice before looking up with that careful customer service expression people use when they are embarrassed for you. "I am sorry, sir." Behind me, a little boy kept kicking a shopping cart wheel while his mother sighed loudly. I checked my banking app right there beside the self-checkout station. Balance, $41.27, that made no sense. Rachel handled most of our budgeting because she was better with details. That was the phrase she always used. Better with details. I left half the groceries behind and drove home gripping the steering wheel hard enough to make my wrist ache. The Arizona heat pressed against the windshield like a weight. At 6:14 p.m., I walked into our Scottsdale kitchen carrying one grocery bag and too much shame. Rachel stood barefoot near the stove in gray workout clothes stirring pasta sauce like nothing in the world had shifted. "You forgot half the list," she said without turning around. "Card issue," I replied. She finally looked at me. Just 1 second too long. Then she smiled softly. "Oh. I moved some money earlier. Things are tight until Friday." Tight. That word settled wrong in my chest because Rachel had just booked a facial last weekend and bought imported candles she claimed were on clearance. Small things. But suddenly every small thing felt sharp. While she carried plates to the dining table, I noticed a sleek black envelope sitting near the fruit bowl. Matte finish. Silver lettering. Not our bank. Rachel moved fast when she saw me glance at it. Too fast. She slid it beneath a stack of mail with one smooth motion and laughed lightly. Mostly junk. During dinner, she talked about a client presentation while twirling pasta around her fork. I barely heard her. My attention kept drifting toward the counter. Toward the hidden envelope. Toward the strange calm in her voice after our grocery card had failed. Rachel had always hated financial stress. Even small overdraft fees used to make her anxious. But tonight she looked relaxed. That bothered me more than panic would have. At 7:42, Rachel went upstairs for a shower. I told myself not to touch the envelope. I lasted maybe 12 seconds. The statement slid out easily. Black credit card. Platinum reserve. Balance, $38,442. 16. My stomach dropped so suddenly I sat down without realizing it. Minimum payment due, $1,127. 84. I read the number 3 times because my brain refused to accept it. Rachel and I had been married 6 years. Shared a mortgage. Shared taxes. Shared holidays. Shared a Costco membership. But somehow my wife had hidden a credit card large enough to wreck our finances completely. Then I saw the transaction list. Napa Valley Hotel and Spa. West Elm. Maison Orel Skincare. Phoenix Luxury Living. Thousands of dollars spread across years of statements. My hands started shaking. At first, I assumed identity theft. That felt safer. Cleaner. But the charges were too specific. Too consistent. And then I noticed the dates. One hotel charge hit me immediately. Napa Valley. April 14th. Last spring. Rachel told me she spent that weekend in Flagstaff helping her aunt after knee surgery. I remember because I sent flowers to the hospital. I remember sitting alone on our couch eating takeout noodles while texting her goodnight. Suddenly I could hear every lie inside that memory. The upstairs shower turned off. My pulse exploded. I shoved the statement back into the envelope just as Rachel's footsteps crossed the hallway above me. She came downstairs drying her hair with a white towel, fresh-faced and relaxed. "You okay?" she asked. I realized I was gripping the edge of the counter. "Yeah," I lied. She opened the refrigerator, pulled out sparkling water, then paused. Why are you looking at me like that? There it was. Tiny tension. Tiny crack. I almost confronted her right then. Instead, I forced myself to breathe slowly. Long day. Rachel stepped closer and kissed my cheek. Warm skin. Familiar perfume. Perfect wife behavior. But now my brain was noticing details it ignored before. The expensive earrings she suddenly started wearing. The packages arriving while I was at work. Her insistence on handling all online orders herself. You should take tomorrow off, she said softly. You look stressed. That line stayed with me after she went back upstairs. Not because it sounded caring. Because it sounded prepared. At 9:16 p.m., while Rachel watched a reality show in bed upstairs, I sat alone in the dark kitchen with the black statement under the pendant light. I started flipping through older pages. The balance had not exploded suddenly. It grew slowly. 5 years of hidden spending. 5 years of minimum payments. 5 years of lies carefully maintained beneath normal conversations about groceries, vacations, and utility bills. Then I noticed something else. Several charges repeated monthly under the same name, Desert Crown Residences. I searched it quickly on my laptop. Luxury furnished apartments. Downtown Phoenix. My chest tightened. Not a one-time mistake. Not shopping addiction alone. Something structured. Something ongoing. Upstairs, I heard Rachel laughing at something on television. Easy laugh. Relaxed laugh. I stared at the apartment website glowing on my screen while the realization crawled slowly through me. I no longer knew what parts of my marriage were real. At 10:03 p.m., Rachel came downstairs for tea and stopped when she saw the kitchen light still on. For one terrifying second, I thought she knew. But she only smiled sleepily and leaned against the doorway. You are still awake, she asked. I closed the laptop halfway. Could not sleep. She walked over barefoot and rested one hand on my shoulder. Everything is going to be okay, Marcus. I looked up at her then. At the calm face. The soft voice. The woman who knew exactly how much money sat hidden behind that black card while I stood embarrassed in a grocery store checkout line 2 hours earlier. And for the first time since I met my wife, I felt something colder than anger. I felt uncertainty. The next morning, I woke before Rachel and stood in the laundry room staring at her purse on top of the dryer. I had never gone through my wife's things before. Not once in 6 years. That should have stopped me. It did not. I opened the zipper slowly and found lip balm, a compact mirror, gum, a folded grocery coupon, and a slim black card tucked inside a side pocket behind old receipts. Same card. Same silver lettering. It looked almost elegant, which made it feel worse. I took one photo, then put everything back exactly as I found it. At 7:08 a.m., Rachel walked in wearing a cream blouse and tailored black pants, her hair already smooth, her face bright with makeup. You are up early, she said. I closed the dryer door. Could not sleep. Her eyes flicked to the purse. Quick. Careful. Then she kissed my cheek. You worry too much, Marcus. That was the first crack of the day. She did not ask what I was worried about. She told me what role to play. At breakfast, she placed avocado toast in front of me like we were in one of her lifestyle photos. I looked at the toast, then at our nearly empty checking account. Are we still tight until Friday? I asked. Her knife paused halfway through cutting an orange. Why? Just asking. We are fine, she said. Too fast. Then she smiled, softer. I moved money around. You know I always handle it. For a moment, I almost relaxed. That was the emotional reversal she was best at. One calm sentence. One familiar smile. Suddenly I felt like the suspicious one. Maybe the card was old. Maybe the balance was business reimbursements. Maybe I had seen numbers without context. Then a delivery truck stopped outside. Rachel heard it before I did. She pushed back her chair so fast it scraped the tile. "I will get it." I followed her to the front window. A driver placed 2 large boxes by the door, both marked with a boutique furniture brand I recognized from the credit statement. Rachel opened the door just wide enough to pull them inside and turned with a laugh already prepared. "Client samples," she said. "For a campaign. Since when do clients send furniture to our house?" Her smile thinned. "Since marketing became more visual than logistics." There it was. The little insult wrapped in professional language. I worked as a regional operations manager. Trucks, schedules, warehouses. Her world had always seemed softer, prettier, harder to question. She carried the boxes to the guest room and shut the door behind her. Not closed. Shut. At 9:30, I left for work, but I did not drive to the office. I parked 2 streets away and opened the shared calendar Rachel insisted we use. Her day was blocked from 11 to 3 o'clock, client errands. No location. No company name. I clicked older weeks. The same block appeared every Thursday for months. Client errands. 4 hours. Same time. Same day. False assumption number 2 arrived quickly. Maybe she had a side business. Maybe she was ashamed because it was failing. That would explain the card. The deliveries. The secrecy. I wanted a version of the truth that did not include another man or another life. At 10:52, I drove back past our house. Rachel loaded the 2 boxes into her white Lexus with quick, practiced movements. She changed clothes too. Not office clothes now. Tan dress. Heeled sandals. Gold earrings. She looked like she was going somewhere brighter than work. I followed from 3 cars back as she headed toward downtown Phoenix. My heart pounded so hard that every traffic light felt personal. She did not go to her office. She turned into a private parking garage beneath a luxury residential tower. Desert Crown Residences. The name from the statement. I sat at the curb and watched the garage gate close behind her. The false assumption of a side business cracked, but it did not fully break. Maybe she stored client props there. Maybe the apartment belonged to her company. Maybe she was meeting a photographer. I heard myself making excuses and hated how natural they sounded. At 12:18, I walked into the lobby pretending I was looking for leasing information. The lobby was cool and quiet, all stone floors, soft chairs, and a faint scent of cedar. A young man at the desk smiled. "Tour appointment?" "Not today," I said. "My wife may have left something here." "Rachel Bennett?" His polite smile changed into recognition. "Mrs. Bennett is usually upstairs on Thursdays." "Usually." My mouth went dry. "Right," I said. "I forgot the unit." He hesitated, then said, "I can call up to 1706. Unit 1706. I thanked him and stepped back before my face gave me away. Outside, the sun hit me hard. I crossed to a coffee shop across the street and sat by the window with a paper cup I never drank from. At 1:04, Rachel came out of the building carrying only her purse. No boxes. Her posture was lighter. Relaxed. She looked peaceful in a way I had not seen at home in months. That hurt more than panic. She walked down the block to a florist and bought herself white roses. Not someone buying flowers for a client. Someone buying flowers for a room. At 2:36, Rachel texted me, "Long presentation. Exhausted. Might grab takeout tonight." I stared at the message while watching her carry roses back toward the tower. The lie was not even elaborate. It was casual. Comfortable. That was when I understood 5 years had taught her I would not check. By evening, I was home before her. I went into the guest room and opened the closet. The boxes were gone, but there were traces. A torn shipping label in the trash. Delivery address, Desert Crown Residences, Unit 1706. Customer name, Rachel Bennett. Billing card ending in 4492. I folded the label and slipped it into my wallet. At 6:47, Rachel came in with Thai takeout and the soft exhaustion of a woman performing a normal workday. "You okay?" she asked, setting containers on the counter. "You seem quiet." I watched her unpack noodles and curry with domestic ease. "Just tired." She came behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. For 1 second, my body remembered being loved by her before my mind remembered the apartment. Emotional reversal again. Warmth. Familiar perfume. A kiss between my shoulder blades. "We are good, right?" she whispered. The question sounded vulnerable. Almost scared. I turned slightly. "Are we?" Her arms loosened. "What does that mean?" "Nothing." She stepped away and busied herself with plates. The shift was instant. Affection withdrawn like a curtain being pulled shut. At 8:11, while she was in the shower, I searched Desert Crown rental listings. Unit 1706 was not available. But a cached listing showed photos from the previous year, furnished 1-bedroom, city view, 12-month lease, fully decorated. The living room had cream chairs, a wine fridge, and a round mirror above a console table. Then I opened Rachel's Instagram from my laptop. She had posted a selfie 2 months earlier in front of that exact mirror. Caption: "Finally feeling like myself again." I sat back slowly. My wife had not only hidden a credit card. She had hidden a place where she became someone else. When Rachel came downstairs in pajamas, I closed the browser and looked at her across the room. She smiled like nothing had happened. Like no alternate life existed 17 floors above downtown Phoenix. "Movie?" she asked. I nodded. She curled beside me on the couch, warm and calm. But the distance between us felt enormous now. Not because she was far away. Because part of her had been leaving every Thursday, and I had only just noticed the door. The next Thursday, I did not pretend to go to work. I actually went. I showed up at 7:40 a.m., sat through a warehouse routing meeting, answered 3 emails, and stared at a shipping delay report until the numbers blurred. By 10:22, I told my assistant I had a vendor call off-site and left through the back entrance. I needed one more piece of truth. Not a feeling. Not a clue. Proof. Rachel had already texted me at 9:58. Crazy day. Back-to-back meetings. Love you. The message landed while I was unlocking my truck. I read it twice. Then I drove straight to Desert Crown Residences. This time I did not go into the lobby. I parked in the visitor garage across the street and watched the entrance from the 3rd level, engine off, windows cracked against the heat. At 11:07, Rachel's white Lexus rolled into the private garage. She wore oversized sunglasses and carried a garment bag over one arm. No boxes. No laptop bag. No client folders. Just a woman arriving somewhere she knew too well. A few minutes later, a tall man in a charcoal sport coat walked into the lobby carrying white roses. My chest tightened so hard I almost opened the door right then. There it was, I thought. The missing piece. The affair. The reason for the apartment. The reason for the card. But then the man came back out alone 6 minutes later, still holding his phone, no flowers. He placed the roses in the back seat of a black Range Rover and drove away. False lead. I felt ridiculous for being disappointed and relieved at the same time. At 11:41, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A photo appeared. It showed Rachel inside Unit 1706, standing in front of that round mirror, wearing the tan dress from last week. Her smile was wide. Alone. Under the photo, one line, "She is not who you think she is here." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. My first instinct was to call the number. My second was smarter. I saved the photo, then looked back at the building. Someone else knew about the apartment. Someone was watching too. That changed everything. At 12:05, I crossed the street and entered the lobby with a delivery bag from the coffee shop downstairs. The concierge recognized me from the week before and smiled uncertainly. Back again? Coffee delivery for 1706, I said, raising the bag like I belonged there. He hesitated, then checked a screen. You can leave it with me. She specifically asked for it upstairs. The lie sounded too smooth. That scared me. The concierge picked up the desk phone. Let me call. My pulse jumped. If Rachel answered, I was done. But after 3 rings, he frowned. No answer. He handed me a temporary visitor pass. Elevator is to the left. I walked like my knees were not loose. On the 17th floor, the hallway was quiet and carpeted, the kind of quiet that makes every breath feel loud. I stopped outside unit 1706. Music played softly inside. Jazz, maybe. I raised my hand to knock, then lowered it. I did not know what I wanted more, to catch her, or to be wrong. Before I could decide, the door opened. Rachel stood there barefoot, wearing jeans and a silk blouse I had never seen, her hair pinned loosely at the back of her head. Behind her, the apartment glowed with afternoon light. Cream furniture. White roses in a vase. New artwork. A life staged with care. Her face went completely still. Marcus. I lifted the coffee bag. Long presentation? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For 1 second, she looked younger. Not guilty exactly. Caught. Then she stepped into the hallway and pulled the door halfway closed behind her. You followed me? You lied to me. That is not the same thing. The sentence was so absurd I almost laughed. It is when the lie has a lease. She glanced toward the elevator, then back at me. You need to leave. Is someone inside? Her eyes flashed. No, I believed her, and that somehow hurt in a different way. If there had been a man inside, I could understand the shape of the betrayal. This was stranger. More intimate. She was not hiding someone from me. She was hiding herself. I pushed the door gently with 2 fingers. She blocked it with her shoulder. Marcus, do not. 5 years, I said quietly. A secret card. A secret apartment. $38,000. You do not get to tell me not to look. She stepped aside at last. I walked in. The apartment smelled like vanilla, roses, and new fabric. There were no men's shoes by the door. No second toothbrush on the bathroom counter. No obvious affair evidence. Instead, there was a closet full of clothes Rachel never wore at home. Bright dresses. Designer coats. A shelf of handbags. A framed photo of her alone on the balcony at sunset. Another of her laughing at a restaurant table, cropped tightly so whoever sat across from her was gone. I picked it up. Who took this? A friend. Name? She folded her arms. You are interrogating me. I am standing in the apartment my wife hid from me. She looked away. Emotional reversal came quietly then. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. You would not understand. That line hurt because it was not defensive. It sounded tired. Try me. She walked to the kitchen island and gripped the edge. I needed somewhere that was mine. I looked around at the $1,200 chairs, the wine fridge, the candles, the skyline view. And the credit card? It got out of control. For 5 years? It started smaller. The doorbell rang. We both froze. Rachel wiped her eyes fast and moved toward the door, but I stepped closer behind her. She opened it only a few inches. A delivery man stood there with a garment box and a clipboard. For Ms. Bennett. Signature required. I saw the label before she could block it. Paid by Ethan Cole Hospitality Group. My stomach dropped again, but in a new direction. Ethan Cole. Not a random man with roses. A name. A company. A connection. Rachel signed quickly and shut the door. Who is Ethan? I asked. She carried the box to the table without looking at me. A client. Clients send dresses to your apartment? It is for an event. What event? Silence. I opened my phone and searched the name. Ethan Cole appeared immediately. Luxury real estate investor. Divorced. 48. Smiling in a magazine photo beside Rachel's marketing firm logo at a charity gala. My head felt hot. Is he the reason for this place? Rachel turned sharply. No, is he paying for it? No, then why does his company send clothes here? She pressed both palms to her temples. Because he knows people. Because he invites me places. Because around them I do not feel like I am barely keeping up. There it was. Not confession. Not denial. Something worse. Access. Validation. A doorway into a life she wanted more than the one we had. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another message, ask her about Napa. I looked up slowly. Rachel saw my face change. What? April 14th. Napa Valley Hotel and Spa. Her lips parted. Marcus. You said your aunt had knee surgery. She did. In Flagstaff. I went there first. The answer came too quickly, too rehearsed. Then Napa? She turned away. It was one night. My ears rang. With Ethan? She did not answer. That was the answer I needed, but not the one my mind could hold. I walked to the balcony door because the room suddenly felt too small. Downtown Phoenix stretched below us, clean and bright and indifferent. Behind me, Rachel said, nothing happened the way you think. I turned back. Then tell me how it happened. She looked at the apartment, the flowers, the garment box, the beautiful furniture bought with money we did not have. For the first time, she seemed afraid of her own reflection in that round mirror. I was not trying to leave you, she said. I was trying to remember who I was before I felt invisible. That should have softened me. A week ago, maybe it would have. But then I looked at the black card on the counter, the delivery label, the hidden clothes, and the photo with someone cropped out. You did not become visible, I said. You became unavailable. Her face crumpled. I left before she could answer. In the elevator, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number again. He is not the only man. But he may be the only one who knows about the card. I stared at the message as the elevator dropped floor by floor. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, I understood the apartment was only proof of the life Rachel wanted me not to see. The card was proof someone else might already be holding the door open. That night, Rachel did not come home until 10:47. I know because I sat in the living room with the television on mute and watched the headlights sweep across the blinds. She entered carefully, carrying a garment bag over one arm and wearing the same silk blouse from the apartment. Long day? I asked. She stopped near the entry table. Please do not do that. Do what? Talk like you already hate me. That should have made me angry. Instead, it made me tired. I wanted to demand answers. I wanted to search her purse. I wanted to call Ethan Cole and hear his voice change when he realized I knew his name. But I did none of that. I looked at the garment bag and said, was the event nice? Her face tightened. First test. Direct enough to sting. Vague enough to deny. It was work. Napa was work too? She looked away. That small movement told me more than an explanation. At 6:30 the next morning, I drove to my office, parked, and waited 10 minutes before leaving again. I needed to know who was sending those unknown messages. The number was blocked, but the photos were too specific. Someone had been inside Rachel's second life long enough to know its walls. I called the garment company from the delivery label and pretended to confirm an order for Ethan Cole Hospitality Group. The woman on the phone was polite until I gave Rachel's name. Then her tone shifted. Ms. Bennett's pieces are usually handled through Mr. Cole's assistant. Usually. That word had started to feel like a fingerprint. I asked for the assistant's name. She gave it before realizing she probably should not have, Natalie Voss. At 9:12, I searched Natalie online for my work laptop. She was 29, worked for Ethan, and appeared in half a dozen event photos with Rachel. Same charity galas. Same rooftop mixers. Same private dinners. In one picture, Rachel stood between Natalie and Ethan with a champagne glass in her hand, wearing a red dress I had never seen. The caption read, "Building Beautiful Partnerships." False assumption returned in a new shape. Maybe Natalie was the unknown number. Maybe she was warning me because Ethan was using Rachel. Maybe Rachel had been pulled into something bigger than vanity and debt. I wanted that. I wanted my wife to be less responsible. That desire embarrassed me. At noon, I tested Rachel again. I sent one simple text, "Do you know Natalie Voss?" She did not answer for 18 minutes. Then, why? Not yes. Not no. Why? I stared at the screen from inside my parked truck behind the logistics warehouse. I typed, because her name came up. Rachel called immediately. I let it ring twice before answering. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Her voice was tight, breathless. "Asking questions. You are making this uglier than it has to be." The card made it ugly. The apartment made it ugly. Napa made it ugly. Silence. Then softer, "You do not know what Napa was." Emotional reversal. There it was again. A crack in her voice. A door I still wanted to walk through. "Then tell me." Not over the phone. At 3:40, I drove to Rachel's marketing office instead of going home. I parked across the street and watched through the glass lobby as employees moved between conference rooms. Rachel came out at 4:06 with Natalie Voss. Natalie was shorter than her photos made her look, with a sharp bob haircut and a phone pressed against her palm like a weapon. They argued near the side entrance. Rachel's hands moved fast. Natalie shook her head once, then pointed toward Rachel's purse. Rachel stepped closer, angry now. Not scared. Angry. A black SUV pulled up. Ethan Cole got out, silver-haired, calm, expensive-looking in the way some men make casual clothes feel like a uniform. Rachel's body changed when she saw him. Not romantic exactly. Relieved. That hurt worse. He placed one hand lightly on her upper back, guiding her away from Natalie. She let him. I got out of my truck before I decided to. Crossed the street. Fast. Natalie saw me first. Her eyes widened. Rachel turned and went pale. Ethan did not. He looked at me like he had expected this eventually. "Marcus Bennett," he said. He knew my full name. I stopped 3 feet from him. Close enough to be direct. Far enough not to give anyone a reason to call security. "Ethan Cole." Rachel whispered, "Marcus, please." Natalie stepped back toward the building, but I looked at her. "Are you the one texting me?" Her face hardened. Ethan turned slightly toward her. That tiny movement answered me before she did. "I thought someone should know," Natalie said. "Know what?" Rachel snapped. "You have been punishing me for months because he stopped inviting you to private events?" Unexpected turn. Natalie laughed once, cold and wounded. "No, Rachel. I started texting him because you are letting this man make you think debt is elegance." Ethan's face remained still, but his jaw shifted. I looked from Natalie to Rachel. The story tilted again. Natalie was not a jealous friend. Not exactly. She looked like someone who had watched a pattern repeat. Ethan finally spoke. "This is inappropriate for the sidewalk." "So was sending my wife dresses to an apartment I did not know existed," I said. He gave a polished half-smile. "Rachel is an adult. Then why does everyone around her talk like she belongs to whoever has the nicer room?" Rachel flinched. I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it. Not because it was wrong. Because it sounded like I was reducing her too. The contradiction inside me split open. I wanted to defend her from Ethan and accuse her at the same time. I wanted to believe she had been manipulated, but I also knew she had lied to my face for 5 years. Rachel looked at me with tears shining but not falling. "I made choices, Marcus." That was the first honest sentence she had given me. Then Ethan said, "Rachel, let us go." "Let us." Like I was an interruption. Rachel did not move. Another reversal. Small but real. "No," she said quietly. Ethan's expression finally changed. "Excuse me?" I said no. Natalie looked down, almost relieved. Ethan gave Rachel a long, controlled stare, then adjusted his cuff. "Call me when you are thinking clearly." He walked to the SUV and left without looking back. No drama. No confession. Just a man withdrawing access. Rachel watched him go, and I saw the truth on her face. Losing him did not break her heart. Losing what he represented did. Natalie approached me after Ethan left. "The card is hers," she said. He did not open it. He did not force it. But he knew. He liked that she needed the invitations. Rachel closed her eyes. "Natalie, stop." "No," Natalie said. "You stop." Then she handed me a folded printout. It was a guest list from a private Napa event dated April 14th. Rachel's name appeared beside Ethan's. Under sponsor notes, wardrobe courtesy, room upgrade, companion discretion. Companion discretion. The phrase made my stomach turn, not because it proved everything, but because it made everything vague enough to be survivable in public and poisonous in private. I asked Rachel one question. "Did you share a room with him?" She looked at me for a long time. Cars moved behind us. Office workers passed without slowing. "No," she said. "But I let you believe I was somewhere else because I wanted to be the woman who got invited." That answer should have helped. It did not. The betrayal had stopped being about a single act. It was about who she became when I was not watching. At 7:25 that evening, Rachel and I sat across from each other at our dining table. Not touching. Not eating. The garment bag lay between us like a third person. She finally opened it. Inside was a dark green designer dress with the tag still attached. Price, $1,890. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because 2 nights earlier I had left frozen chicken at a grocery store. Rachel covered her face. "I know." "Do you?" I asked. She lowered her hands. "I know I hated feeling ordinary. I know that sounds horrible. It sounds honest." She nodded, crying now. "I kept thinking one more event, one more outfit, one more afternoon at the apartment, and then I would feel like I had become someone solid. Someone impressive. But every bill made me feel worse, so I bought something else to cover the feeling." The logic was terrible. But it was logic. Cause and effect. Shame to spending. Spending to secrecy. Secrecy to fantasy. Fantasy to deeper shame. I could follow the path even while hating where it led. "And Ethan?" I asked. She wiped her face. "He made the fantasy easier." I stood and walked to the window because if I stayed seated, I might forgive too quickly or break completely. Outside, our street looked peaceful. Sprinklers. Porch lights. Neighbors walking dogs. The kind of normal life Rachel had apparently been escaping from while I thought we were building it together. Behind me, she whispered, I did not sleep with him. I closed my eyes. That mattered. And it did not. Rachel, I said, you lived with him in your head. She did not deny it. That night, after she went upstairs, I opened the folded printout again. On the back, Natalie had written one sentence in blue ink, ask where the first balance came from. I stared at it until the room felt cold. 5 years. $38,000. But according to Natalie, the secret did not start with the card. The card started after something else. The next morning, Rachel made pancakes. Not toast. Not protein bars. Pancakes from scratch, the way she used to make them our first year of marriage when our apartment smelled like butter and cheap coffee. Emotional contrast arrived before I was ready for it. She stood at the stove in an old college sweatshirt, hair tied messily, no makeup, looking less like the woman from Unit 1706 and more like the wife I had been trying to find under all that shine. I know breakfast does not fix anything, she said. I just needed to do something normal. I sat at the island and watched syrup slide down the stack she placed in front of me. For a few seconds, I almost forgot about Natalie's note. Then I unfolded it beside my plate. Ask where the first balance came from. Rachel saw the handwriting and went still. Where did the first balance come from? I asked. The spatula slipped from her hand into the pan. She turned off the burner slowly, like sudden movement might break the room. Marcus. Do not say my name like that. She sat across from me but did not touch the food. Before we got married, my parents lost their house. I frowned. You told me they downsized. That was the word my mother used because bankruptcy sounded too ugly. The twist did not land loudly. It moved under the floor first. Rachel's parents, the cheerful couple from Tucson who sent Christmas cards from golf resorts, had built half their image on money they did not have. Rachel explained in fragments. Her father's failed construction business. Her mother opening store cards to keep appearances. The foreclosure notice hidden until neighbors saw movers. I was 24, she said. I had just gotten engaged to you. I thought if you knew, you would look at me differently. I pushed the pancakes away. So the card started before Ethan? She nodded. Before the apartment. Before everything. That should have made me feel relieved. It did not. It made the lie older. Whiter. Rachel went upstairs and returned with a shoebox from the back of her closet. Not designer. Not elegant. A faded blue Nike box with old tape on the corners. She placed it between us like evidence. Inside were letters from collection agencies, printed spreadsheets, and 3 cashier's check receipts. The first credit card statement showed a balance of $9,600 from 5 years earlier. Charges were not dresses or hotels. They were payments to keep her parents' storage unit, her mother's car insurance, and one overdue medical bill from going to collections. I stared at the dates. 2 months after our wedding. While I was saving for a down payment. While she was telling me her parents were fine. You helped them with our money? I asked. No, she said quickly. With credit. I told myself that made it separate. The logic was terrible, but I understood the shame behind it, and that made me angry in a different way. You let me think we were partners while you were drowning alone. Her eyes filled. I did not know how to tell you I came from people who performed stability better than they lived it. At 10:18, my phone buzzed. Natalie again. Do not let Ethan rewrite this. He used her history. I showed Rachel the message. Her face changed from sorrow to alarm. What does she mean? You tell me. She shook her head. Ethan knew my parents had financial trouble. I told him once after too much wine at a fundraiser. And then? Rachel rubbed her temples. Then he started inviting me to rooms where everyone looked like the person I was trying to become. Unexpected turn. Ethan had not created the debt. He had identified the wound. That did not make Rachel innocent. It made the trap more believable. At noon, I went to the bank alone and requested copies of every joint account transfer from the past 6 years. While waiting in the glass office, I watched couples sit beside each other filling out mortgage forms. I remembered Rachel and me doing that, her hand on my knee under the desk, both of us promising full transparency. My contradiction grew sharper. I hated what she did, but the paper trail showed she had not secretly drained our account for luxury at first. She had hidden family shame, then built a fantasy to survive the shame she created by hiding it. Cause. Effect. Collapse. The banker printed the records. One transaction caught my eye. A $5,000 cash advance from the secret card, 3 years ago, followed by a payment to Bennett Household checking the same week our air conditioner failed. Rachel had told me her holiday bonus covered the repair. It was a lie. But it was a lie that kept our house cool in August. That revelation twisted everything again. She was not only stealing from the marriage. Sometimes she was secretly saving it and poisoning it at the same time. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes with the papers on my lap, unsure what kind of betrayal I was holding. At 2:40, I drove to Tucson. Rachel did not know. I needed to see her parents' house, or the place where it had been. The address from the old collection letters led to a beige stucco home with new owners, a basketball hoop in the driveway, and wind chimes by the porch. I parked across the street and felt foolish. Then an older neighbor watering lantana looked at my truck and asked if I was looking for the Grants. Rachel's maiden name. I stepped out. I am their son-in-law. The woman's face softened with recognition and something like pity. That poor girl, she said. She used to come by after they left, just sitting in her car like she was guarding a ghost. The sentence hit harder than I expected. Rachel had not simply lied about where she came from. She had been grieving a version of herself she believed poverty had exposed. On the drive back, I called her. Did you used to sit outside your old house? Silence. Then a small sound. Who told you that? A neighbor. Rachel inhaled shakily. I hated that I missed it. We lost it, and I still missed it. For the first time, I heard the girl beneath the polished wife. I also heard the woman who had let me stand in a grocery store humiliated while she hid a life downtown. Both were true. That was the hardest part. By evening, I met Rachel at Unit 1706 because she said there was something I needed to see before we decided what happened next. The apartment looked different with me invited inside. Less mysterious. More desperate. White roses drooped in a vase. Shopping bags leaned against the wall. On the bedroom dresser sat a stack of unopened bills bound with a hair tie. Rachel picked up the top envelope and handed it to me. I was going to tell you after I paid it down. When? I asked. When it got small enough to sound forgivable. That answer was so honest it hurt. Then she opened the closet and pulled down a small locked box. Inside were not love letters from Ethan. Not hotel room keys. Not jewelry. There were rejection letters from personal loan companies, declined balance transfer offers, and a handwritten plan titled Exit before Marcus finds out. My chest tightened. Exit? Not leave you, she said quickly. Exit the debt. Exit the apartment. Exit all of this. I wanted to believe her. Then I saw another page underneath. A list of possible divorce attorneys printed from Google. The room went quiet. Rachel saw it at the same time I did. That was from one night, she said. After we fought about money and you slept on the couch. You researched divorce instead of telling me the truth? I researched everything except telling you the truth. That sentence became the center of the room. At 8:06, Ethan called her. His name lit up on the phone lying between us on the apartment counter. Rachel looked at me, then answered on speaker. Rachel, Ethan said smoothly. Natalie is causing problems. You need to let me handle Marcus. I felt my jaw tighten. Rachel's voice shook. You do not handle my husband. A pause. Then Ethan laughed softly. That is new. She closed her eyes. Do not call me again. Careful, he said. People who pretend to belong in certain rooms usually do not survive being embarrassed in them. There it was. The velvet threat. Not loud. Not crude. Just status used as a weapon. Rachel ended the call with shaking fingers. For the first time, I saw the fantasy from the inside. It had never been freedom. It was another place where she had to perform. Another room where someone measured her worth. I looked around at the beautiful apartment and felt no satisfaction. Only exhaustion. You built this because you were afraid I would judge where you came from, I said. Then you found people who judged you every minute. Rachel sank onto the edge of the couch. I know. That night, I drove home alone. She stayed behind to pack. Not because I trusted her fully. Because for the first time, she was dismantling the lie without me forcing her hand. At 11:32, she texted me a photo. The black card cut in half on the apartment counter. Under it, one sentence, I do not know if this saves us, but I am done saving the version of me that was ruining us. I stared at the image for a long time. The twist had not made the betrayal smaller. It made it human. And somehow, that made the decision harder. The next morning, I found Rachel asleep on the couch with 3 cardboard boxes beside her and packing tape stuck to her sleeve. The apartment key sat on the coffee table next to a stack of unpaid statements. For a few seconds, the room looked almost innocent. Morning light came through the downtown windows, soft and gold, touching the white roses she had forgotten to throw away. She looked younger without makeup, curled under a throw blanket in the middle of the beautiful lie she had built. I stood there holding 2 coffees and felt something close to grief. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Grief for the woman she might have been if shame had not taught her to hide before love had a chance to hold her. Rachel woke when I set the coffee down. Her eyes went straight to the boxes. I packed the clothes first, she said, voice rough from crying or no sleep. I did not know what to do with the furniture. I looked around the apartment. The cream chairs. The mirror. The candles. The expensive objects that had replaced conversations. We are not solving furniture today. She nodded like even that small mercy cost her something. Then my phone rang. Natalie. I put it on speaker before I answered. Marcus, Ethan is hosting a donor brunch at the Cambry Hotel in 2 hours, she said quickly. Rachel's name is still on the guest list. He is telling people she misused his company account for personal purchases. Rachel sat up so fast the blanket fell to the floor. What? Natalie's voice hardened. He is protecting himself. If anyone asks about the garment deliveries or Napa, he is making you look unstable and desperate. The room changed temperature. For 2 days, I thought the climax would be Rachel confessing everything to me. I was wrong. The lie had left our marriage and entered a room full of people who cared more about reputation than truth. Rachel stood, shaking. He cannot do that. He already is, Natalie said. At 9:35, we drove separately to our house. Not because we trusted the plan. Because we needed documents. Rachel went upstairs for old statements, and I opened the dining room drawer where we kept our household folders. The contrast almost hurt. Our mortgage papers. Maya's old graduation announcement from my niece tucked inside by mistake. A grocery coupon Rachel clipped and never used. Normal life sitting inches from financial ruin. Rachel came down carrying the shoebox, the cut black card, and a folder from Unit 1706. I will call him, she said. No, I answered. You will not let him move the conversation somewhere private again. She stared at me. You want to go there? I want the room he is lying in to hear the correction. For the first time in days, Rachel did not argue. At 10:22, we entered the Cambry Hotel lobby in downtown Phoenix. The brunch was upstairs in a private terrace room overlooking the city. I wore the same navy blazer I used for work conferences. Rachel wore a plain black dress from home, not the green designer one. No shine. No performance. Her hands trembled as we stepped into the elevator. "Marcus," she whispered, "if this gets ugly, you can walk away from me." I looked at our reflection in the elevator doors. Two married people standing side by side and miles apart. "I already know I can walk away," I said. "That is why I am staying for the truth." The doors opened before she could answer. The terrace room smelled like citrus, champagne, and expensive perfume. Ethan stood near the windows, silver hair perfect, surrounded by donors and clients. He saw Rachel first. Then me. His smile did not slip. That frightened me. Men like Ethan did not panic because they trusted rooms to protect them. Rachel started toward him, but I touched her elbow lightly. "Slow," I said. "Let him come to us." He did. Of course he did. "Rachel," he said warmly, loud enough for nearby guests. "I was concerned you might not be feeling well." It was a performance wrapped as concern. Rachel's jaw tightened. "I am feeling clear." Ethan gave me a courteous nod. "Marcus." I hope she explained how complicated this all became. She explained enough. He leaned closer, lowering his voice but keeping his smile. "Then you understand this is a private matter." Rachel's voice shook, but she held it. "No, Ethan. You made it public when you started telling people I used your accounts." A woman nearby turned slightly. Ethan's smile thinned. "Careful. One word. Velvet over steel." Rachel opened the folder and pulled out the garment invoice. "Your company sent items to my apartment. I signed for them. But I paid the credit card. Not you." Ethan sighed lightly, as if she were being emotional at a charity lunch. Rachel often confused professional support with personal generosity. That sentence was designed to make her look foolish. It almost worked. I saw the old shame hit her face. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. Emotional breakdown came quietly at first. Then she looked at me, and something in her changed. She turned back to Ethan. "No. I confused being invited with being valued. That part is on me. But you knew exactly what you were doing." The room grew quieter. Not silent. Just aware. Natalie appeared near the bar holding her phone. "I have emails," she said. Ethan's head turned slowly. "Natalie." She stepped forward. "You told me to route wardrobe through hospitality so Rachel would feel obligated to attend private events. You told me not to copy her husband because you said he was too ordinary to understand the circles she could move in." The words landed harder than I expected. Too ordinary. I almost laughed because all week I had been measuring myself against the apartment, the clothes, the hotel charges. Ethan had used the same insecurity against both of us from opposite sides. Rachel wanted to feel elevated. I was meant to feel beneath the room. Ethan's expression finally cooled. Disgruntled employees say many things. Natalie unlocked her phone. Former employees save emails. Unexpected turn. Former. He had already fired her, or she had already left. Either way, she had nothing left to lose. Rachel pulled the cut black card from the folder and placed it on the nearest cocktail table. People stared. "This is mine," she said. Her voice cracked. "The debt is mine. The lies to my husband are mine. The apartment is mine. I am not here to pretend I was innocent." My chest tightened. This was the confrontation I had not expected. Not Rachel begging me. Not Ethan confessing. My wife standing in a room that had fed her fantasy and refusing to hide inside it anymore. She continued, "But I will not let you tell people I stole from you so you can look generous instead of manipulative." Ethan stepped closer. "You should think about what this does to your marriage." Rachel looked at me then. The whole room seemed to move behind her, but her eyes stayed on mine. "My marriage is already broken because I broke it," she said. "But I am done letting men decide which version of me survives." Silence followed. Real silence this time. I did not know whether to feel proud, devastated, or emptied out. Maybe all three. A hotel manager approached carefully, asking if there was a problem. Ethan smoothed his jacket and said there had been a misunderstanding. Natalie laughed once, bitter and small. That is his favorite word. I handed the manager copies of the invoices and told him there might be a corporate billing dispute. I did not threaten anyone. I did not raise my voice. I simply put paper where charm had been. Ethan stopped smiling. At 12:16, Rachel and I walked out of the hotel together, but not touching. Outside, the Phoenix sun was sharp and bright. She stopped near the valet stand and bent forward, hands on her knees, finally crying in a way she had not allowed herself to cry inside. Not pretty crying. Not controlled. Broken, breathless, humiliating crying. I stood beside her while cars pulled up and strangers looked away politely. Part of me wanted to hold her. Part of me wanted to leave. That contradiction had become the shape of my whole life. "I am sorry," she said between breaths. "I am so sorry." "I know." "No, Marcus. I need you to hear it without me explaining it. I lied. I hid debt. I made you feel like you were failing when I was the one burying us. I let Ethan make me feel special because I did not know how to feel safe being ordinary with you. That was the full truth. Or close enough to break what was left." I looked at the traffic moving along the street, the hotel glass reflecting us back like two people in a scene neither of us wanted to be in. "I was not perfect either," I said. She shook her head immediately. "Do not rescue me from responsibility." Another reversal. The woman who had dodged truth for 5 years was now guarding it from my instinct to soften the fall. At 1:03, we returned to Unit 1706 with Natalie following in her own car. The three of us packed in silence. Not dramatically. Methodically. Dresses into donation bags. Candles into boxes. Unopened bills into a folder for a financial counselor. Rachel removed the round mirror from the wall last. Behind it, the paint was slightly darker, untouched by sunlight. She stared at the empty square for a long time. "That is what it feels like," she said. "What?" I asked. "Taking down the version of yourself everyone kept admiring." Natalie carried the mirror to the hallway. I watched Rachel stand in the blank space it left, no reflection available. For the first time, she looked lost without looking fake. By 4:30, the apartment was half empty. Rachel handed me the spare key. "I am closing it this week." "Good." "I am meeting with a debt counselor tomorrow." "Good." She swallowed. "And a therapist." I nodded, but did not say good again. Some things need more than approval. They need time to become real. She looked at the floor. "Do you want me to leave the house tonight?" The question sat between us heavier than any statement. I thought about the grocery store. The card. Napa. The brunch. The old shoebox. The pancakes. The way she had finally stood in that room and named herself without decoration. "I do not know," I said honestly. Her face folded with pain, but she accepted it. Okay. That mattered. Not because it fixed us. Because for once, she did not try to edit my answer into something easier for her. At 6:02, we drove home in separate cars again. I watched her Lexus ahead of me on the freeway, steady in traffic, carrying boxes from a life I had never been invited into. The truth had finally come out, but it did not feel clean. It felt like opening every window in a house full of smoke and realizing fresh air still does not rebuild the rooms. When we reached our driveway, Rachel carried the shoebox inside first. Not the dresses. Not the candles. The shoebox. The beginning. And I understood then that the secret credit card had never been the deepest wound. It was only the receipt. For the first 3 days after we emptied Unit 1706, Rachel moved through the house like someone learning how to walk after an injury. Quiet. Careful. No perfume. No online deliveries arriving at the front door. The guest room became a temporary storage space for boxes from the apartment, and every time I passed it, I felt like I was walking beside the remains of another marriage hidden inside my own. On Thursday morning, I woke expecting Rachel to disappear downtown like she had every week for years. Instead, I found her sitting alone at the kitchen table in sweatpants, staring at a legal pad covered with handwritten debt totals. No makeup. Hair tied back. Coffee gone cold beside her. She looked up when I entered. "I cancelled the lease this morning," she said softly. I nodded once and opened the refrigerator without knowing what to do with the information. Emotional payoff did not arrive all at once. It came in awkward domestic moments. The following week, Rachel sold most of the designer clothes online. I watched her photograph handbags on the dining room table where we used to eat tacos and watch basketball games. Every click of the camera sounded strangely final. One afternoon, she held up a cream-colored coat and asked quietly, "Do you remember when I told you this was from a work giveaway?" "Yes." She folded it carefully into a shipping box. "I bought it the same day your card got declined at the grocery store." Neither of us spoke after that. The truth no longer exploded between us. It settled slowly into corners of the house. At 2:17 one Friday, I received an email notification from our bank. Rachel had added me to every account, every statement, every balance tracker. No hidden passwords. No separate alerts. Just complete access. I sat in my office staring at the screen while warehouse employees moved forklifts outside my window. 6 years into our marriage, my wife had finally stopped editing herself before I could see her. That realization should have comforted me. Instead, it made me realize how long I had loved a carefully managed version of someone who never believed ordinary honesty would be enough to keep her safe. A few days later, I came home early and heard music playing softly from the kitchen. Rachel stood barefoot at the counter making pasta sauce, exactly like the night I first found the black statement. Same kitchen. Same wooden spoon. Different woman. Or maybe the same woman without the performance. She looked over her shoulder nervously when I walked in. "I made too much food again," she said. I almost smiled. "You always do." For one dangerous second, the house felt normal enough that my body forgot we were broken. Then I noticed the empty space on her finger where she had stopped wearing her wedding ring around the apartment months before I even knew it existed. The emotional contrast hit hard because now she wore the ring again, but I could still see the pale line where it had disappeared. At dinner, she told me her therapist asked why she believed being admired mattered more than being known. Rachel laughed once after saying it, but her eyes filled immediately. I did not have an answer. I set my fork down. "You thought admired people do not get abandoned." She looked at me across the table, genuinely surprised. "How did you know that?" Because somewhere inside all my anger, I had finally started understanding the architecture of her fear. Not excusing it. Understanding it. At 8:40 p.m. that same night, Rachel handed me a small stack of printed papers while we sat in the living room. Debt repayment plans. Counseling schedules. Budget breakdowns. Then one final page. A list titled "Things I Lied About." My stomach tightened before I even looked down. Small lies. Large lies. Hidden balances. Fake work events. Napa. The apartment. Even tiny things I never questioned, like pretending some gifts came from clients instead of Ethan's circle. "I wanted you to have the whole thing," she whispered. "Not just the parts that make me easier to forgive." I read every page slowly while she sat across from me twisting a tissue in both hands. No defensiveness. No explanations. Just truth laid out without decoration. And somehow, that honesty hurt more than the lies because now there was nothing left to chase or expose. Only decisions. At 11:12 p.m., after Rachel went upstairs, I walked into the guest room alone. Half-packed boxes lined the walls. The cream chairs from the apartment sat covered in plastic wrap. The round mirror leaned against the closet door reflecting only dim hallway light. I stared at my own reflection in it for a long time. Tired eyes. Work badge still clipped to my belt. Wedding ring still on my hand. I realized then that I had spent the entire marriage believing stability automatically created intimacy. I worked longer hours when finances got tight. I avoided conflict because I thought peace meant success. Meanwhile, my wife disappeared into prettier rooms because neither of us knew how to speak honestly without feeling ashamed. That realization did not erase her choices. But it stopped me from pretending I had been fully present while she drifted away in plain sight. The following Sunday, Rachel asked if I wanted to drive with her to Tucson. Why? I asked carefully. My parents are finally selling the storage unit. We drove 2 hours mostly in silence through desert highway light and faded gas stations. At the storage facility, Rachel opened a metal unit filled with old furniture, framed family photos, and boxes labeled Christmas and kitchen. The remains of the life her parents lost. She stood there staring at it quietly until she finally said, "I thought if I became polished enough, no one would ever know this happened to us." I looked around at the dusty furniture and cracked photo frames. "Rachel, everybody comes from something." She nodded slowly. "I know that now." Then she surprised me. She picked up one of the framed family photos and handed it to me. Her parents standing in front of their old house smiling too hard for the camera. "Keep this," she said. "I do not want to hide where I came from anymore." That moment stayed with me longer than the confrontation at the hotel. Longer than the apartment. Because it was the first time Rachel offered me something real without wrapping it in performance first. A month later, the guest room was finally empty again. The apartment furniture was sold. The black card account was closed permanently. Ethan never contacted her again after Natalie forwarded certain emails to his investors and board partners. Life became quieter. Not magically healed. Just quieter. Some nights Rachel and I still sat in the same room feeling miles apart. Other nights we talked honestly until midnight about money, fear, class, shame, and all the small silences that built the larger collapse. Healing did not look romantic. It looked uncomfortable and repetitive and painfully ordinary. One evening near the end of summer, I stopped at Fry's Food and Drug after work. Same location. Same checkout area where my debit card had declined weeks earlier. I filled the cart without checking the total once. When the cashier scanned the groceries, Rachel stood beside me holding strawberries. Fresh ones this time. "You want these?" she asked softly. I looked at the strawberries, then at her face. No hidden apartment keys. No polished social smile. Just nervous honesty. "Yeah," I said. "Get them." The payment went through instantly. Small sound. Simple moment. But as we walked out into the warm Arizona evening carrying grocery bags together, I realized something painful and strangely freeing at the same time. The secret credit card had never only been about money. It was about two people trying to outrun shame in opposite directions until they almost lost each other in the distance.